This semester, we will be having all unit tests in Webassign. We normally have them in the e-learning testing center in a proctored environment, but of course we cannot do that currently. So this is an example of what a test is going to look like in our class this semester. So I have this assignment, Magnuson 271 test rehearsal, and it is available for you to play with. So you can get used to what taking a unit test will be like in our class. So notice that in the description it tells you that you need to upload files showing your work or otherwise justify showing your work, and I'll get to that in a minute. And justification from sources outside of our class will be considered academic dishonesty, including a requirement that we meet face-to-face for mathematical justification if there's any doubt about work submitted. So let's look at the 3 questions in this exam rehearsal. The first one requires you to enter some function. So these are pre-calculus questions, by the way. And you would enter your answer in Webassign as normal. And then to justify your work, which you would be doing on paper and pencil anyway because you do math with paper and pencil, you would need to upload either a picture of your written work, or if you wanted to do your work in Microsoft Word and use an equation editor, you could do that. But I think it's easier to just take a picture and upload it. So you would enter your answers here, and then you would upload your JPEG or PNG file, whatever it is, or PDF here. So I want to show you what the work would look like. Of course, it's going to vary because it would be your own unique work, but here is my work showing a detailed mathematical justification and why I'm using the process that I'm using here. The why is the big part. Notice that a lot of times when you upload a picture, it uploads sideways and then it's hard to read. There's a way to adjust the properties of your JPEG file on your computer so that it orients the proper way. So also I want you to notice that questions are going to be presented one at a time, and student work will not be the same. Student questions will not be the same across students. Normally, Webassign puts randomized values in red font. For a real test, that will not be the case. So keep that in mind. So here's another example where you're supposed to enter some numerical values. You're supposed to evaluate the function. This shows that you understand a piecewise function. And then to justify the work, you would upload how you came up with that. So notice that this justification shows that I know that if the input is -5, I'm using this function. If the input is 0, I'm using this function. And if the input is 6, I'm also using the function 2 minus x. So that's considered justification. You don't have to write a whole bunch of written paragraphs or anything justifying it in that regard. But I do want to see work showing that you're applying concepts we learned in this class to these problems. So that was justification for mathematical work, but there are also other types of questions you can get. You can get multiple choice questions. So here's an example of a multiple choice part. So part A was evaluating that, and then part B is choosing the correct graph for this function. And for a problem like this, you justify it not by uploading a file, but just by typing right in this text box. 2 minus x is used when x equals 0. And that means that the point 0, 2 must be on the graph. Since you use the function 2 minus x for values of x greater than 0, that means that this is the answer because the point 20 is on it, and this is the graph of 2 minus x when x is greater than 0. So that's the other way you're going to show your work, by actually typing in a text box. And then here's an example of a multi-part question where they're both multiple choice. The explain your reasoning is a multiple choice option here, but then I also would like you to go farther. So let's look at this question. So we have two graphs. This blue one's a graph of f. Is f even, odd, or neither? And f is odd because it's symmetric with respect to the origin. And how do we explain that in our own words? Even this part that says explain your reasoning. Because for something to be symmetric about the origin, that means that if you rotated the graph 180 degrees, it would look the same. And that also means that another way to say that in function notation is f of minus x equals minus f of x. So just type that right in there. And then part B asks about g. Is g even, odd, or neither? G is even because it's symmetric with respect to the y-axis. So that g's even. And in your own words, explain why. Explain that reasoning. And I'd say something like half the graph is the mirror image of the other half across the y-axis. And that means that f of minus x equals f of x. So I just wanted to show you what these requirements mean when you need to show your work and you need to give detailed justification. That doesn't mean you need to stress out about writing paragraphs and paragraphs of prose. It just means that you really need to show your work based on concepts we've covered in our class, not other sources, and that you know why you're doing something. You're not just repeating work that you've seen before without understanding it, not just regurgitating examples. So you'll be using Webassign for homework and quizzes as well. So you'll be getting familiar, if you don't know already how to use it, with how to enter things and just the whole feel of the system. But this justification steps in each of these problems is a little bit different than you're going to see in the homework or the quizzes. So I want you to take this test rehearsal yourself, and please let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.